Good morning, everyone. We live in a world that often tells us to keep the peace by staying silent. We are taught from an early age that silence is polite, that it's safer to not rock the boat, and that speaking up can sometimes bring unwanted consequences. But what happens when this silence becomes a habit? When it allows injustice, perpetuates pain, or even diminishes our own worth? Today, I want to talk about 5 situations where silence isn't golden. In these moments, your voice is not just a tool, it's a responsibility. There is a reason you're sitting there speaking. When you speak, the power of vulnerability lies in its ability to create authentic connections, break down barriers, and foster deeper understanding between individuals. It's a concept that is often misunderstood, as vulnerability is frequently equated with weakness, fragility, or the lack of resilience. But in reality, vulnerability is one of the greatest strengths a person can demonstrate. It requires immense courage to reveal your true self to others, to open up about your fears, your struggles, your hopes, and your failures. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or exposing every aspect of your life. Instead, it is about being honest, present, and willing to engage with the world from a place of authenticity. It's the willingness to say, I don't know, or I need help, or even I made a mistake. These moments of openness are where growth begins. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite others to do the same. It's a reciprocal act that creates an environment of trust and safety. Think about the relationships in your life that matter most. Were they built on perfection, or were they built on moments of shared humanity? On the times when you let your guard down and showed someone who you truly are? Vulnerability is what takes a connection from surface level to meaningful. In professional settings, vulnerability can transform the way teams operate and innovate. Leaders who admit when they don't have all the answers or who acknowledge their limitations inspire confidence, not doubt. They create space for collaboration and encourage others to bring their full selves to the table. Teams that embrace vulnerability are more likely to take risks, to think creatively, and to push boundaries because they know that failure is not the end, it's a stepping stone for others. Feeling relaxed about my errors makes me feel stronger. At its core, vulnerability is about living wholeheartedly. It's about showing up and being seen even when there are no guarantees. It means putting yourself out there, knowing that rejection, disappointment, or failure might follow, but also knowing that without taking those risks, you'll never experience the rewards of love, connection, or accomplishment. Anyway, courage over comfort is a principle that challenges us to step outside the safety of the familiar and take meaningful action, even when it's difficult. Comfort is seductive. It wraps us in a cocoon of predictability where risks are minimized and uncertainty is avoided. But comfort rarely leads to growth. It keeps us stagnant, while courage propels us forward into the unknown, where possibility and transformation reside. Choosing courage over comfort means standing up for what is right, even when it's easier to stay silent. It's about recognizing those moments when your voice is needed, when injustice, inequality, or harm persists, and choosing to speak out despite the fear of backlash or rejection. This isn't a decision made lightly. It often comes with challenges, discomfort, and even personal cost. But it's in these moments that real change begins. Courage also demands vulnerability. It requires us to confront our fears, admit our mistakes, and acknowledge that we don't always have the answers. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's moving forward in spite of it. It's walking into situations where the outcome is uncertain and saying, I'm willing to take this risk because it matters. Whether it's a difficult conversation, standing up to authority, or pursuing a dream that feels out of reach, courage asks us to trade the safety of comfort for the possibility of something greater. In personal relationships, courage over comfort can mean addressing conflict instead of avoiding it, being honest about your feelings, or setting boundaries that honor your needs. These actions may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but they build the foundation for healthier, more authentic connections. Choosing courage might mean disappointing someone else to stay true to yourself, or risking vulnerability to deepen your bond with another person. In the workplace, courage over comfort shows up as speaking up in meetings, proposing innovative ideas, or advocating for equity and inclusion. It's the willingness to challenge the status quo, even when it might make you unpopular. It's understanding that progress often comes with discomfort, but that discomfort is a necessary part of creating something better. Leaders who choose courage inspire others to do the same, fostering environments where innovation, trust, and collaboration thrive. On a personal level, choosing courage over comfort is about embracing the discomfort of growth. It's about trying something new, pursuing a dream, or pushing yourself past self-imposed limitations. Growth rarely happens in the confines of comfort. It happens when we stretch ourselves, take risks, and confront our fears head on. This doesn't mean recklessness. It means being intentional about stepping outside your comfort zone in ways that align with your values and aspirations. Empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have for building bridges between people, fostering understanding, and creating a sense of connection in an increasingly divided world. It is the ability to step into someone else's shoes, to see the world through their eyes, and to feel with them, even if their experiences are vastly different from our own. Empathy isn't about fixing or solving someone else's problems. It's about being present with them, offering validation, and showing that their feelings and experiences matter. So today, I'm going to share with you the series of audio courses that I'm creating on how to better understand and share the feelings and experiences of others. At its core, empathy allows us to honor the humanity in others. It's not about agreeing with someone or condoning their actions. It's about recognizing their feelings as real and valid. When we approach others with empathy, we create a space where people feel seen, heard, and understood, a space where they can be themselves without fear of judgment or dismissal. This kind of connection can be transformative, both for the person receiving empathy and for the one offering it. Empathy is particularly valuable in moments of conflict or misunderstanding. It's easy to become defensive or dismissive when faced with opposing views or challenging emotions. However, empathy encourages us to pause, listen, and seek to understand before reacting. It requires us to let go of our assumptions and biases and to genuinely try to comprehend where the other person is coming from. This doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but it does mean acknowledging their perspective as valid and worth considering. In relationships, empathy is the glue that holds people together. It allows us to navigate the ups and downs of life with compassion and care. When someone we love is hurting, empathy helps us to be present without trying to fix the situation or offer solutions. It allows us to sit with them in their pain and let them know they're not alone. This kind of presence is far more meaningful than any advice or quick fix we could offer. In leadership, empathy is a critical skill that fosters trust and collaboration. Leaders who practice empathy understand the needs and challenges of their team members, creating an environment where people feel valued and supported. This doesn't mean sacrificing accountability or avoiding tough conversations. It means approaching those conversations with a genuine desire to understand and support. Empathetic leaders inspire loyalty and engagement as team members feel seen, not just as workers, but as individuals with unique stories, strengths, and struggles. And on a societal level, empathy has the power to bridge divides and create understanding across cultural, political, and ideological lines. In a world where polarization and conflict are increasingly common, empathy reminds us that beneath our differences, we share a common humanity. It allows us to see beyond stereotypes and labels and to connect with people as individuals. When we practice empathy on a collective scale, we build stronger communities and lay the foundation for a more inclusive and compassionate society. Practicing empathy isn't always easy, especially when emotions are high or when we feel misunderstood ourselves. It requires patience, self-awareness, and a willingness to listen without judgment. It also requires humility, the recognition that we don't have all the answers and that our perspective is just one of many. But the rewards of empathy far outweigh the challenges. By practicing empathy, we not only deepen our connections with others, but also gain a greater understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls we build to keep others out, but in reality, boundaries are bridges that help us navigate relationships with clarity, respect, and care. They are not about pushing people away or creating distance. They are about defining what is acceptable in our interactions with others and communicating those limits with honesty and kindness. Boundaries are not only essential for maintaining our own well-being, they are also acts of compassion both for ourselves and for the people around us. Setting boundaries begins with understanding our own needs, values, and emotional limits. It's a deeply personal process of recognizing what feels right for us and what doesn't, and then having the courage to articulate those needs to others. This is not about controlling or punishing anyone. It's about taking responsibility for our own emotional health. When we establish clear boundaries, we are not just protecting ourselves from burnout, resentment, or overwhelm. We are also modeling self-respect and encouraging healthier dynamics in our relationships. Boundaries create clarity. Without them, misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and unresolved tensions can fester, leading to frustration and conflict. When we set boundaries, we remove ambiguity and make our expectations clear, allowing others to engage with us in ways that feel respectful and constructive. This clarity is a gift. It ensures that everyone involved knows where they stand and what is required for the relationship to thrive. In many ways, boundaries are a form of compassion for others because they prevent us from harboring unspoken resentment or frustration. When we fail to communicate our limits, we may find ourselves agreeing to things we don't want to do or tolerating behaviors that hurt us. Over time, this can erode trust and goodwill in the relationship, leading to passive-aggressive behaviors or outright conflict. By setting boundaries, we give others the opportunity to engage with us in a way that honors both parties, reducing the likelihood of misunderstandings or resentment. Boundaries also demonstrate a deep respect for the individuality and autonomy of others. When we set boundaries, we acknowledge that people are not mind readers and that it is unfair to expect them to know what we need without being told. At the same time, respecting other people's boundaries shows that we value their comfort and agency. Boundaries, when practiced mutually, create a foundation of trust and respect that strengthens relationships rather than weakening them. For many people, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable or even selfish. Society often teaches us that putting others first is the ultimate act of kindness. But this perspective ignores the fact that we cannot give our best to others if we are depleted, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a way of ensuring that we have the energy, time, and emotional bandwidth to show up fully for the people and things that matter most to us. In professional settings, boundaries help us maintain balance and prevent burnout. They allow us to say no to unreasonable demands, to delegate responsibilities, and to prioritize our well-being without guilt. At the same time, boundaries in the workplace create healthier team dynamics as they prevent miscommunication and encourage everyone to operate within clear, agreed upon parameters. In personal relationships, boundaries are essential for maintaining emotional safety and fostering deeper connections. They allow us to be honest about our needs and to trust that the people who care about us will respect those needs. For example, setting a boundary might mean limiting the time spent with someone who drains your energy, or it might involve expressing that certain topics are off limits in conversation. These actions are not about rejecting the other person. They are about preserving the health of the relationship by ensuring the interactions remain respectful and supportive. Over the course of the last 6 years, we have overproduced 34 amazing episodes that are short, sweet, and actionable. Perhaps one of the most compassionate aspects of boundaries is that they help prevent people from inadvertently causing harm. When we set clear limits, we give others the opportunity to adjust their behavior and interact with us in ways that align with our needs. This not only helps us feel respected, but also gives others the chance to grow and improve in their interactions. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about creating a framework in which everyone can thrive. Practicing boundaries requires ongoing communication, self-reflection, and sometimes difficult conversations. It means being honest even when it feels uncomfortable, and standing firm in our limits even when others push back. But while setting boundaries can be challenging, it is one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves and for the people we care about. Shame is one of the most isolating and corrosive emotions we can experience. It drives in secrecy, feeding on our fears that if others knew the truth about us, our mistakes, flaws, or perceived inadequacies, they would reject us. Shame tells us that we are unworthy, that we don't belong, and that we are defined by our worst moments. It silences us, keeping us trapped in cycles of self-doubt and pain. But there is a profound truth about shame. It cannot survive being brought into the light. When we choose to share our stories of shame, we break its hold on us. Speaking about our experiences, whether to a trusted friend, a therapist, or even in a journal, strips shame of its power. What was once overwhelming and suffocating begins to lose its intensity when it is met with empathy, understanding, and compassion. This process is not easy. It requires vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to confront what we would rather hide. But the act of bringing shame into the open is the first step toward healing. Shame thrives in the dark because it convinces us that we are alone. It tells us that our struggles and failures are unique to us and that no one else could possibly understand or relate. But when we share our stories, we discover a powerful truth. We are not alone. The human experience is filled with imperfections, mistakes, and missteps. And in sharing our own, we often find that others have walked similar paths. This shared understanding creates connection, and connection is the antidote to shame. Empathy is a critical part of dismantling shame. When someone listens to our story without judgment, it validates our experiences and reminds us of our inherent worthiness. Empathy says, I see you, I hear you, and I still value you. This message is transformative, especially in moments when shame has convinced us that we are undeserving of love or acceptance. The presence of another person who offers kindness and understanding can help us begin to see ourselves through a more compassionate lens. Shame also loses its grip when we confront the false narratives it creates. Shame tells us lies about who we are, what we're capable of, and what we deserve. It twists our mistakes into identities, making us believe that we are inherently flawed or broken. By bringing those narratives into the light, we can begin to challenge and rewrite them. We can separate our actions from our identity, acknowledging that while we may have made a mistake, that mistake does not define us. Naming our shame is a powerful tool in this process. Giving voice to the feelings we've kept hidden takes away their mystery and their control. It allows us to examine them more clearly, to understand where they came from, and to decide whether or not they hold truth. Often we find that the things we feel shame about are rooted in unrealistic expectations, societal pressures, or wounds from our past. Recognizing these roots helps us to release the shame and replace it with self-compassion. It's important to acknowledge that not everyone deserves to hear our stories of shame. Sharing requires discernment and trust. The person we choose to confide in should be someone who has earned the right to hear our vulnerability, someone who will respond with empathy, not judgment. This careful sharing is not about seeking validation from others. It's about finding safe spaces where we can begin the work of healing and reclaiming our sense of worth. Bringing shame into the light is not a one-time act, but an ongoing practice. Shame may resurface in new situations or at different stages of our lives. When it does, we have a choice to retreat into silence or to confront it with honesty and courage. Each time we choose to speak our truth, we weaken shame's hold and strengthen our resilience. By refusing to let shame keep us silent, we reclaim our power and our voice. We remind ourselves that our worth is not defined by our mistakes or imperfections, but by our humanity. In the light, shame cannot thrive. It begins to dissolve, making room for self-acceptance, growth, and connection. Your voice is one of the most powerful tools you possess. It has the ability to create change, inspire action, and challenge the status quo. When used with intention and courage, your voice can become a catalyst for transformation, not just in your own life, but in the lives of others and in the broader world. It's not about how loud or confident your voice is. It's about the impact of what you choose to say and when you choose to say it. Being a catalyst begins with recognizing the importance of speaking up. So often we hesitate to use our voice because we underestimate its power. We tell ourselves that our opinions don't matter, that someone else will say what needs to be said, or that we don't have the expertise or authority to speak out. But every great movement, every act of progress starts with someone daring to break the silence. When you use your voice, you open the door for others to do the same. Your voice is a catalyst for truth. In a world full of misinformation, silence can sometimes allow falsehoods to flourish. By speaking up, you shine a light on what is real, honest, and necessary. Whether it's addressing a misunderstanding in a personal relationship, correcting a harmful narrative in your community, or advocating for justice on a larger scale, your voice can cut through the noise and make a meaningful difference. Injustice, oppression, and inequity often persist because people are afraid to speak out. It's not always easy to challenge systems of power or to call attention to uncomfortable truths, but history shows us that change begins when individuals choose to speak up, even when it's risky. Your voice has the potential to disrupt complacency, to awaken others to what needs to be addressed, and to inspire collective action. Using your voice as a catalyst doesn't always mean making grand public statements or leading protests. Sometimes it's the quieter, more personal moments that have the biggest impact. It's the conversation where you stand up for someone who is being treated unfairly. It's the instance where you set a boundary or express your feelings in a way that deepens understanding. It's the choice to challenge a harmful comment or behavior, even when it would be easier to let it slide. These moments may seem small, but they create ripples that can grow into waves of change. Your voice also has the power to amplify the voices of others. Not everyone has the platform, privilege, or resources to be heard. By using your voice to elevate others, sharing their stories, advocating for their needs, or creating space for them to speak, you become part of a larger movement for equity and inclusion. This isn't about speaking for others. It's about ensuring that their voices are not ignored or silenced. Fear is often the biggest barrier to using our voice. Fear of judgment, rejection, or making mistakes can hold us back. But being a catalyst doesn't require perfection. It requires authenticity and intention. When you speak from a place of honesty and alignment with your values, your voice resonates more deeply. It inspires others not because it's flawless, but because it's real. It's also important to recognize that using your voice is a practice. You won't always get it right, and that's okay. What matters is your willingness to keep showing up, to learn from your experiences, and to refine your approach. Growth comes from the times you choose to speak, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Trust me when I say that your voice will not always be perfect. It will get better over time. Your voice can spark courage in others. When people see you using your voice, it can empower them to find their own. This is especially true in environments where speaking out feels risky or where silence has become the norm. Your choice to break that silence can create a ripple effect, inspiring others to step forward and share their truths. In personal growth, your voice is a catalyst for self-advocacy. It's the tool you use to express your needs, desires, and boundaries. Speaking up for yourself is not just an act of self-respect. It's also a way of showing others how to treat you. When you use your voice to advocate for your well-being, you set a powerful example for those around you. Your voice matters. It has the ability to disrupt, to inspire, and to heal. It can start conversations that lead to breakthroughs, challenge ideas that no longer serve us, and plant seeds of change that grow over time. By choosing to use your voice, you step into your power and play an active role in shaping the world around you. The themes we've explored, vulnerability, courage, empathy, boundaries, shame, and the power of your voice, are deeply interconnected. Together, they form the foundation for a life of authenticity, connection, and meaningful impact. Each of these principles calls us to step into discomfort, to embrace our imperfections, and to recognize the inherent value in ourselves and others. When we choose courage over comfort, we begin to dismantle shame, confront fear, and create space for truth to flourish. By practicing empathy, we bridge divides and foster understanding, while boundaries allow us to nurture relationships rooted in respect and compassion. Vulnerability reminds us that strength is found not in perfection, but in the willingness to show up as we are. And through the intentional use of our voice, we become catalysts for change, igniting conversations, inspiring action, and amplifying the truths that matter most. The power to transform our lives and the world around us lies in these choices. It's about stepping forward even when the path is uncertain and committing to live in alignment with our values. When we embrace these principles, we not only create a stronger sense of self, but also contribute to a more compassionate, connected, and equitable world.